My starting point when it comes to the consideration of any issue relating to free speech is my passionate belief that the second most precious thing in life is the right to express yourself freely. The most precious thing in life, I think, is food in your mouth, and the third most precious is a roof over your head. But a fixture for me in the number 2 slot is free expression, just below the need to sustain life itself. That is because I have enjoyed free expression in this country all my professional life and fully expect to continue to do so. Personally, I suspect highly unlikely to be arrested for whatever laws exist to contain free expression because of the undoubtedly privileged position that is afforded to those of a high public profile. So my concerns are less for myself and more for those more vulnerable because of their lower profile. Like the man arrested in Oxford for calling a police horse gay, or the teenager arrested for calling the Church of Scientology a cult, or the cafe owner arrested for displaying passages from the Bible on a TV screen. When I heard of some of these more ludicrous offences and charges, I remembered that I had been here before in a fictional context. I once did a show called Not the 9 O'Clock News some years ago, and we did a sketch where Griff Rhys-Jones played Constable Savage, a manifestly racist police officer to whom I, as his station commander, is giving a dressing down for arresting a black man on a whole string of ridiculous, trumped-up and ludicrous charges. The charges for which Constable Savage arrested Mr. Winston Kadogo of 55 Mercer Road were these: walking on the cracks in the pavement, walking in a loud shirt in a built-up area during the hours of darkness, and one of my favourites, walking around all over the place. He was also arrested for urinating in a public convenience and looking at me in a funny way. Who would have thought that we would end up with a law that would allow life to imitate art so exactly? I read somewhere a defender of the status quo claiming that the fact that the gay horse case was dropped after the arrested man refused to pay the fine, and that the Scientology case was also dropped at some point during the court process, was proof that the law was working well, ignoring the fact that the only reason these cases were dropped was because of the publicity that they had attracted. The police sensed that ridicule was just around the corner and withdrew their actions. But what about the thousands of other cases that did not enjoy the oxygen of publicity, that weren't quite ludicrous enough to attract media attention? Even for those actions that were withdrawn, people were arrested, questioned, taken to court, and then released. You know, that isn't a law working properly. That is censoriousness of the most intimidating kind, guaranteed to have, as Lord Dear says, a chilling effect on free expression and free protest. Parliament's Joint Committee on Human Rights summarised, as you may know, this whole issue very well by saying, while arresting a protester for using threatening or abusive speech may, depending on the circumstances, be a proportionate response, we do not think that language or behaviour that is merely insulting should ever be criminalised in this way. The clear problem with the outlawing of insult is that too many things can be interpreted as such. Criticism is easily construed as insult by certain parties. Ridicule easily construed as insult. Sarcasm, unfavourable comparison, merely stating an alternative point of view to the orthodoxy can be interpreted as insult. And because so many things can be interpreted as insult, it is hardly surprising that so many things have been, as the examples I talked about earlier show. Although the law under discussion has been on the statute book for over 25 years, it is indicative of a culture that has taken hold of the programmes of successive governments, that with the reasonable and well-intentioned ambition to contain obnoxious elements in society, has created a society of an extraordinarily authoritarian and controlling nature. It is what you might call the new intolerance, a new but intense desire to gag uncomfortable voices of dissent. I am not intolerant, say many people, say many softly spoken, highly educated, liberal-minded people. I'm only intolerant of intolerance. And people tend to nod sagely and say, oh yes, wise words, wise words. And yet if you think about this supposedly inarguable statement for longer than 5 seconds, you realize that all it is advocating is the replacement of one kind of intolerance with another, which to me doesn't represent any kind of progress at all. Underlying prejudices, injustices, or resentments are not addressed by arresting people. They are addressed by the issues being aired, argued, and dealt with, preferably outside the legal process. For me, the best way to increase society's resistance to insulting or offensive speech is to allow a lot more of it. As with childhood diseases, you can better resist those germs to which you have been exposed. We need to build our immunity to taking offense so that we can deal with the issues that perfectly justified criticism can raise. Our priority should be to deal with the message, not the messenger. As President Obama said in an address to the United Nations only a month or so ago, laudable efforts to restrict speech can become a tool to silence critics or oppress minorities. The strongest weapon against hateful speech is not repression, it is more speech. And that's the essence of my thesis, more speech. If we want a robust society, we need more robust dialogue, and that must include the right to insult or to offend.
In agreeing to participate in this debate and stand on this side of the argument, I'm fully aware that many people who choose incorrectly, in my view, to see this issue in terms of left and right, devalued and exploded terms as I think they are, will believe that I am betraying myself in such causes and values that I have espoused over the years. I've been given huge grief already simply because I'm standing here next to Professor Peterson, which is the very reason that I am standing here in the first place. I'm standing next to someone with whom I have, differences, shall we say, in terms of politics and all kinds of other things, precisely because I think all this has got to stop. This rage, resentment, hostility, intolerance, above all this with us or against us, certainty. A grand canyon has opened up in our world. The fissure, the crack, grows wider every day. Neither on each side can hear a word that the other shrieks, and nor do they want to. While these armies and propagandists in the culture wars clash, down below in the enormous space between the two sides, the people of the world try to get on with their lives, alternately baffled, bored, and betrayed by the horrible noises and explosions that echo all around. I think it's time for this toxic, binary, zero-sum madness to stop before we destroy ourselves. I'd better nail my colours to the mast before I get any further in this. It's only polite to give you a sense of where I come from. All my adult life, I have been what you might call a lefty, a soft lefty, a liberal of the most hand-wringing, milksop, milquetoast variety. Not a burning man-the-barricade socialist, not even really a progressive worth the name. I've been on marches, but I've never quite dared wave placards or banners. Am I a loathed member of that band, an SJW, a social justice warrior? I don't think highly of social injustice, I have to say, but I character myself mostly as a social justice warrior. My intellectual heroes growing up were Bertrand Russell and G.E. Moore, liberal thinkers, people like that, writers like E.M. Forster. I believed, and I think I still do believe, in the sanctity of human relations, of the primacy of the heart and friendship and love and common interest. These are more personal, interior beliefs than they are political exterior convictions, more a humanistic version of a religious impulse, I suppose. I trust in humanity. I believe in humanity. I think I do, despite all that has happened in the 40 years of my adulthood. I am soft, and I can easily be swept away by harder hearts and harder intellects. I'm sometimes surprised to be described as an activist, but over time I have energetically involved myself with what you might call causes. I grew up knowing that I was gay. Well, in fact, from the very first I knew I was gay. I remember when I was born looking up and saying, that's the last time I'm going up one of those. I'm Jewish. I'm Jewish, so I have a natural, obvious horror of racism. I want racism, misogyny, homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia, bullying, bigotry, intolerance of all human kinds to end. That's surely a given amongst all of us. The question is how such a golden aim is to be achieved. My ultimate objection to political correctness is not that it combines so much of what I have spent a lifetime loathing and opposing, preachiness, with great respect, piety, self-righteousness, heresy hunting, denunciation, shaming, assertion without evidence, accusation, inquisition, censoring. That's not why I'm incurring the wrath of my fellow liberals by standing on this side of the House. My real objection is that I don't think political correctness works. I want to get to the Golden Hill, but I don't think that's the way to get there. I believe one of the greatest human failings is to prefer to be right than to be effective. And political correctness is always obsessed with how right it is without thinking of how effective it might be. I wouldn't class myself as a classical libertarian, but I do relish transgression, and I deeply and instinctively distrust conformity and orthodoxy. Progress is not achieved by preachers and guardians of morality, but, to paraphrase Yevgeny Zemyatin, by madmen, hermits, heretics, dreamers, rebels, and skeptics. I may be wrong. I hope to learn this evening. I really do think I may be wrong, but I'm prepared to entertain the possibility that political correctness will bring us more tolerance and a better world. But I'm not sure. And I would like this quotation from my hero Bertrand Russell to hover over the evening. One of the painful things about our time is that those who feel certainty are stupid, and those with any imagination and understanding are filled with doubt and indecision. Let doubt prevail.
On the Golden Globes, a lot of time you are politically incorrect and hilarious, of course.
Thank you.
And so,
thank you.
So this is,
well,
yeah,
well, that's the thing about offence, isn't it? When people say they're offended, it's that just because you're offended, it doesn't mean you're right. You know, it's offence is about feelings, and feelings are personal. Some people are offended by equality. So what? You know, so you can't second-guess people. If you try and please everyone, you'll please no one. With comedy as well, I think you've got to deal with taboos and contentious issues, and sometimes you deal in irony, and some people don't get that, but, you know, you can't legislate against stupidity, otherwise you'll be doing nothing. So if you're saying anything, you should polarise. You should polarise, because everyone's different.
Seriously, you know, there is deep infantilism in the culture. And that extends, you know, you can laugh at it, you know, in terms of what people wear and what films they see, but in terms of the way they think, they can't bear complexity. The idea that things aren't easy to understand, that there's a but there's a you have to think, there are gradations, and there are, you know, that no one wants that. They want to be told, or they want to be able to decide and say, this is good, this is bad. I'm saying so. Anything that in any way conflicts with that is not to be borne. And on student campuses, this idea of,
trigger warnings.
There are many great plays which contain rapes. And the word rape now is even considered a rape. To say the word rape is to rape. Well, it has an interesting Latin root, and the word raptor comes from the same root, rapine, and there are all kinds of words from it. Violate, you know, these words. They're terrible things, and they have to be thought about clearly. But if you say you can't watch You can't watch this play. You can't watch Titus Andronicus, or you can't read it in a Shakespeare class. Or you can't read Macbeth because it's got children being killed in it. And you might trigger something when you were young that upset you once because Uncle touched you in the nasty place. Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's a great shame, and we're all very sorry that Uncle touched you in that nasty place. But you get some of my sympathy, but your self-pity gets none of my sympathy, because self-pity is the ugliest emotion in humanity. And get rid of it, because no one's going to like you if you feel sorry for yourself. The irony is we'll feel sorry for you if you stop feeling sorry for yourself. Just grow up.
When I approached stand-up, my mission statement was to try and be as funny as you are in the pub. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
So I didn't want it to be too, tricksy, or I played a slight persona, because I always do that anyway. I do that. We do that here, So it was saying the wrong thing for comic effect, or being naughty, or trying to get people to laugh at things they didn't know they could. And I've always doubted Taboo for that reason, because I think it's more exciting. Sure. You want to take the audience to a place it hasn't been before. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and get them to laugh at things they didn't think they would enjoy.
Exactly. And this show is all about that. It's all about, there are no bad subjects for jokes. It depends what the joke is. We've talked about this a lot. And I talk about the most taboo subjects, and I discuss them, and then give an example of the joke. And by the end, they're cracking up, and they're knowing they get it. They sort of get, oh yeah. If you start off with a joke in that subject, it's, oh, why has he done that? Because they don't know where you're coming from. And that's the other thing about this tour. People know me now, so they know what I'm doing. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
absolutely.
a friend, like a mate knows you don't mean it. These 5,000 strangers every night. No, I don't mean it.
Right.
Do you know? So
they know what they're in for. They know what to expect.
They know what they're in for, and they love it. And it's almost like they're going, "Oh, he's always done this, but I don't think we quite got it before."
Right. We can't get. You're one of the few A-list celebrities. I'm going to say A-list celebrities who doesn't back off when you're criticized for a joke, which I love. Yeah. You never back off when you're joking about something and people are like, I don't like that. You basically tell them, all right, well, then don't follow me. You don't have to like it. Or if they're insulting, you're insulted. Like, you handle it really well.
Well, I think that's because I can justify it. I'm not one of these comedians who goes, oh, it was just a joke. Because, I don't really do that. I think it has to stand up on its own, comedic legs. And I talk about this, that, offence is often caused when people mistake the subject of a joke with the target. They don't look at the joke. They've been told this ridiculous dogma that some subjects shouldn't be joked about, which is the nonsense. And I get asked, is there anything you won't joke about? And I think, well, you're a journalist. Is there anything you won't write about? Right. It depends what you write. And it's funny, because whenever I've done a joke about a really contentious subject, or, and it's discussed on the radio the next day, I'm going, but you're talking about it. Yeah. You're talking about it. Because they assume I'm coming it from the wrong direction. They assume I'm punching down, and they assume I'm making fun of whatever the victim is in this joke. Right. Which isn't true. Because a joke about something doesn't have to be pro or anti. It can be either. It can be neither. It can punch nowhere. It can be a pun. Right. It doesn't. You have to take every single joke on its merit.
And I recently got, and again, you can't, I've talked about this on the show before, but I was recently on Twitter, I did a Caitlyn Jenner joke, which wasn't even nasty, and I was accused by a bunch of people of being transphobic. Right.
This is at least 15 minutes in my new, 15 minutes in my new stand-up about...
And not even about that. I talk about it in my special. I got accused of being transphobic, and it was like, wow, you really have no idea who you're talking about, do you?
Well, exactly. I mean, they picked on the wrong person there. But I did a joke at the Golden Globes, and they were saying it was transphobic. And I said, why? And they said it was about a trans person. I said, well, that's like saying a joke about Bill Cosby is racist. Right. It depends what the joke is. It wasn't transphobic at all. The joke I told at the Golden Globes, I came out and I said, all the actors are looking at me all nervously, brilliant. And I said, relax, I'm going to be nice tonight. I've changed. Not as much as Bruce Jenner.
That's funny.
And I go, now Caitlyn Jenner, and what a year she's had, became a role model for trans people everywhere, bravely breaking down barriers and destroying stereotypes. She didn't do a lot for women drivers. So the subject of that joke is clearly stereotypes.
And by the way, like, the thing that people should, even if they're going to take umbrage with something, it should be like, wait a minute, wasn't that a thing? Somebody died in that car accident that he's referencing.
Yeah.
But nobody even picks up on that.
I discuss it. I say, let's not forget the target of the joke is a celebrity killing someone in their car.
Yeah. And they also said you dead named, Travis reminded me that you dead named just because you said
I talk about
Bruce.
that as well, dead naming, which is ever saying that her old name and that she used to be a man, and then I say, but she was. And then I do the thing about she was in the Olympic Games, and I act out, and so, and I say, and I was second, my second crime was saying that he'd changed, because they say, people, that she hasn't changed, that she's always identified as a woman, and so that, she had gender realignment. And I discuss it in the live. I discuss all the criticism of me, and then I say my piece, because I think it can be funny to deconstruct, particularly when you're the butt of the joke, or you're, and so I always try and keep it fair. I don't ever do a sleight of hand where I say something that's a lie or to make myself look better in a joke.
Right.
I think that's really important. I think that, and then once you've done your best and you've explained it well, people are still going to make their own mind. They don't have to like it. They don't even have to get it. But someone not getting your joke isn't your problem. It's theirs.
Right. They always say, go ahead. They always say, like, well, you should tell a joke that your joke should be better. And say, why is there never any responsibility on the idiot with ears that took it wrong?
Brilliant.
Why is it always my fault?
Brilliant. That's brilliant. Why isn't it your responsibility to get the fucking joke?
Yeah.
That's a great. And the other thing I get is whenever, like in the press, a joke of mine is discussed as being offensive, I don't mind that at all. But when they get the fucking joke wrong, that drives me mad. I go, well, no, that's not the fucking joke I said. That isn't a good joke. A joke should be perfect. Every word matters. It's like a cryptic crossword clue. Every word matters. It's a little piece of poetry, right? So if you get one of those things wrong, you can fuck the whole joke.
So instead you have a news anchor paraphrasing, going, well, what he was pretty much saying was, and you're like, no,
yeah,
no.
Well, I did a joke years ago. I say I hate drink driving. I think it's terrible. I grew up when it wasn't a stigma. Now it's terrible. And by the way, I don't even drive. So this joke's everyone knows. I say I did it once. I took the car out and I was drunk one Christmas. But I learnt my lesson because I nearly killed an old lady. And then I go, in the end, I didn't kill her. In the end, I just raped her. So the joke there is clearly the magic act with nearly killed.
It's a misdirection.
So they think I swerved and nearly killed her. But what I actually meant were I've attacked her so much that she nearly died from horrendous, and it turns out worse, right?
Yeah.
Much worse.
So they're discussing that joke as terrible, right? So in the paper, they tell the joke as this. They tell the joke as this. I went out and I nearly killed an old lady. In the end, I didn't kill her. I just raped her. So they don't tell anything about the drink driving bit.
The whole setup is gone.
So they just think, well, he's a maniac. He said what? He went out and nearly killed an old lady but just raped her? Well, that's
not even a joke.
That's not even a fucking joke. I know, exactly.
He's just confessing to crimes on stage.
Yeah.
Arrest him.
Yeah.
That really made me laugh. That was really fucking funny.
It's clever. It's and I say everything matters. And live, I even do the mime of the steering wheel, and I nearly killed an old lady, and so that's planted firmly in their head, and then the surprise at the end,
It's the ultimate misdirection, and I hate to break it down like that, but that's really what sometimes it's a misdirection where I didn't even do this, and then what you've done is more barbaric or worse, and that's what the joke isn't about a rape, it's about doing something even worse where you're trying to admonish yourself, I didn't do anything wrong, and then you've done something worse.
Well, that's exactly, and also, we've discussed this before when people say, "Oh, you think rape's funny?" They mean jokes about rape, but they've done that little sleight of hand on purpose to make you back yourself into a corner. Like, do you think rape's funny? The answer's no.
Of course not.
No one finds fucking rape funny. And I do this live as well. I say not even rapists find rape funny. There's been never a case of someone giving evidence going, it was dark, he was wearing a ski mask, and he was giggling. So, but they try and the answer is, again, it depends on the joke. I really break it down. It's so much fun. It's such a great platform to be able to put your side forward and discuss humour in a funny way. And so you're taking them along with you all the way. You're explaining. They're hearing every word from your side, and then it takes a long time to explain what humour is to someone or freedom of speech, or it's.
We've talked about it on the show. It's crazy that we've gotten to a point where you have to show how the trick is done. Like, as a comedian, you have to pull the curtain back. There can't be any more fourth wall. Like, you have to take them behind the scenes and say, "This is what I did. This is my intention. This is why I put this here." Like, you shouldn't have to.
Well, no, you shouldn't have to. But this is the reason is the more terrible and emotive the subject, the harder it is to get over the hump about a joke about it.
Right.
Yeah.
We can joke about, you know, people joke about murder and people get it. They go, murder, you know, which is horrendous. It's murder. But they can't take that personally because they haven't personally been murdered. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if you do something that touches someone or a group of people and it's, you know, it's very, very emotive. It's hard for them to get over that. The number of times people have seen my stand-up and I've had one complaint. I did the first time I played Madison Square Garden. I got a complaint from a Jewish society saying we loved the show, we loved all the we were however unhappy about a routine about Anne Frank, and they told me it's like I said but you got the jokes about famine and cancer and AIDS, and you got those. You know, I said I'm doing the same thing with her as I did with those things. I'm saying the wrong thing, and they went, oh yes, yes, okay, we understand it. And sometimes you do need that, and I don't begrudge people because they're not attuned to. We think about these things every day. A 30-second joke, we've probably put 3 hours work into it. Do you know what I mean? Or thought about it, or introspected, or so. We are presenting them with a finished item, but that's the tip of the iceberg, and so sometimes they do have to get over there. It's hard to, by definition, to see your own blind spot, because everyone's got their thing they don't want to joke about. People say things, are you ever offended by things? I go, I'm offended every day. I'm offended by loads of things. You know, I'm not immune to being offended.
You just don't want a penalty imposed.
Well, exactly, yeah.
You avoid the things you're offended by.
Yeah, that's the other thing about today. People think that they have the right, because they don't want to hear something bad, that it's their right to shut you up, as opposed to it's their right not to listen. And that's the confusion as well.
I think going back to your point that you originally made about Ricky being one of the only people on his level to stand up for himself, right? To not apologize for everything,
not be cowed by it,
to stick by what you say. Do you think that that's partly, or I'd say fully, because you're aware of your ability to create, meaning you're not really beholden to anything? Well, because you can create your own material.
No, it's not that I think I'm bulletproof or I don't care or they can't do anything about it. Although all those things are true. No. If I'm not breaking the law and they're not coming to my house, who cares? It's virtual, right? You know. It's not that. It's that I'm confident in that I've done right. I don't think I've done a really bad thing and I can get away with it. Fuck you. I think no, I've done a right thing here. I can stand. I justify every one of my jokes as an okay thing to do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not saying, because that doesn't make sense. I can't say, yeah, I do bad things, but so what? I wouldn't do them if I thought they were bad things. So I'm disagreeing with them that what I've done is a bad thing. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
And I try and get across to people that jokes about a bad thing isn't the same as the actual bad thing. It's not even condoning the bad thing. It could be anti the bad thing. Otherwise, we wouldn't have satire and irony. So
you do see so many people, though, and I think that's what you're talking about, Jim, who will, even though you can tell they don't believe it, go, you know, at first this wasn't my intention, but I saw it from your perspective, and the apologies come out, and they're just trying to get the bad story away, Yeah,
well, so I think sometimes it depends. Some people are just trolls. Some people just want to ruin your day. They get in the way. They jump in the way of a bullet and say, why are you shooting at me?
Yeah, and people love to be martyrs.
Oh, they think everything's personal. I don't even know they're following me. I don't know these people. I'm just tweeting, and they take it personally. They go, "Why are you tweeting?" I'm not tweeting you. You've come to my house, knocked on my door, and said, "Why are you talking to me?" Well, I'm not.